Okay, so how many people here own any cryptocurrencies? Great. Okay, how many own any cryptocurrencies that aren't Bitcoin? Nice. Okay, how many own cryptocurrencies that aren't Bitcoin or Ethereum? Okay, how many have ever used a cryptocurrency that you hold on the network that issued it? Okay, so I want to introduce this panel by saying that what we have here is a true rarity, like a unicorn in the world of cryptocurrency, because we have 3 entrepreneurs on this panel who have all issued coins that are in use and usable on the networks on which they issue them. Right? So a little bit about me. My name is Galen Moore. I've been a financial technology journalist in Boston for quite some time, and recently started a center called Token Report, which is a financial research service covering cryptocurrency assets. We track more than 400 of these things at this point that have ICO'd or have announced intentions to ICO. And you could count the number that actually have coins in circulation that can be used on their network on all your fingers and toes. So with that, I guess I'll let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves. Right?
Sure. Can everybody hear me? No. Okay. I might just spell it out. So my name is David Bork, and I co-founded with a friend from college the Cyan Network. And what we're doing is we're building decentralized cloud storage. So the idea is that, unlike with Amazon, where when you put your data onto the Amazon cloud, you give control of that data over to Amazon, and you're sort of relying on Amazon alone not to go down, not to shut down, not to deny you access to your data. So we've leveraged blockchain technology to make it so that you can put your data onto a decentralized cloud where there is no Amazon, there is no counterparty who can interrupt your access to your data. So that's what we're doing.
Hi, my name is Chetan Manikantan. I'm originally from Bangalore in southern part of India. My experience with cryptography is when I first built my undergraduate thesis project was a encryption tool that I built for an Indian defense company. And subsequent to that, one of my tech companies, we built a cryptographic signing tool for software licensing when this shrink-wrap software was still a thing. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tango. Tango Pay still hasn't ICO'd or done any token sale. We're in the process of doing it. It's a peer-to-peer lending platform primarily for people who don't have a bank account or who don't have a credit score. Focused on the US market. And we enable utility companies to collect payments from these people who don't have bank accounts. So our customers are utility companies. End users are underserved, or people who don't have bank accounts and credit score.
So your target is like everyone who didn't get hacked by Equifax.
Hi, hello everyone, my name is Joe. I started my cryptocurrency journey with Bitcoin. I built the first exchange for people to trade American style options on Bitcoin. And then I jumped ship. If you look at my shirt now, I'm building applications on Ethereum blockchain. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of First Blood. My 30 seconds pitch for this project is we're building a platform allow video gamers to play their favorite games, not only for fun, but also for money. Think us as DraftKings for esports.
I'm Jeremy Kaufman. I'm the creator, founder, and CEO. Is this working? Yes. Creator, founder, and CEO of Library, which, if I like to confuse people, I say is a fat protocol that provides decentralized digital content distribution, discovery, and purchase. But if I like it to make sense to people, I say we're like YouTube without Google. So what our protocol does is it allows people to distribute and monetize digital content, but it does it in a way where there's no one company in charge of it. We've done it entirely via an open source protocol, a standard that anyone else can pick up and use and implement. And that's what Library is.
Cool. So decentralized Amazon Web Services, decentralized Equifax, decentralized DraftKings, and decentralized YouTube, right?
If we've got to do the Uber Next thing, then
yeah. No, the Uber Next thing is good. It definitely de-risks a project.
Yeah.
So tell me. I mean, let's just open this up and let's talk about decentralization. Why is that important? And not from a idealistic perspective, but from a business perspective, what kind of benefits can decentralization provide?
To me, it's actually more about the permissionless aspect, the idea that we can create a technology that anyone can pick up, can use, can do that without our permission, that's not controlled by an entity, because that requires trust. When I use YouTube or Amazon or these companies to distribute my content, I have to trust them, exactly what David is saying. I have to trust them, that they're not going to change the rules, that they're not going to do things to me, right? And so the difference is, we can do things as a standard, as a protocol. If I go to one of our content creators and I say, we're going to give you 100% of the money, and I did that as a private company, they're going to think, oh, well, they're going to create and switch me, right? This is a real thing. If I do that and I say, this is an open standard, you can look at the source code, anyone can do this, you're going to get 100% of the money, they're going to trust that a lot more.
And for first, why there are multiple layers. On the basic layer is we can utilize decentralized digital currencies, allow gamers to compete and transact with each other, and using that decentralized. Can I just borrow your?
Yeah.
Okay. This is so annoying. And using a decentralized smart contract, which is a scripted thing stored in the database, we can allow users to have complete control over their gaming fund. And for a gamer, any of you guys a gamer here? Yeah, so you've been gaming with all kinds of digital currencies within the platform since day one. So digital currency to gamer is super, super familiar to them. And for us, we really want to give every single gamer the sense of control of their fund and reward them during their gaming journey. And the third part of the utility is we are building a decentralized jury system, allow the gamers themselves to report the users who are being toxic or using cheats. And then if they end up cleaning up their own mess for the community, they're going to get a reward for that. And we can power that with the blockchain technology. Yeah.
I guess two things. Equifax, hide won't happen. Second, Wells Fargo won't create your bank account without your knowledge. It's also because there are 106 million people in the US who are underserved or underbanked. And increasingly they're abandoning the banks and vice versa. So it means that they're all going back to 18th century predatory services like payday lending, check cashing centers. It's astonishing to me coming from India to see something like that in the US. And I think the only true way to solve that problem is to have a decentralized economy.
Why? Why couldn't I just, if there's an opportunity there, the market's there, why can't I solve that problem and serve those customers with a trusted centralized entity?
It's two things. One is also the costs so high, the bonuses and whatnot. So it is expensive to serve people who don't have money for banks. The other thing is also because there is a fee-based model. If you have a check that bounces, you have to pay a fee, ATM withdrawal fee, account maintenance fee, a whole lot of different things that is discouraging people from trusting the banks. And they are trying to use that as a way to encourage only people with money to be in the banking system. I can talk more about it, but that's the problem.
David, how about you guys? How does decentralized make a difference in terms of data storage business?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things that stands out to me in terms of decentralization is the way that we get rid of all this extra infrastructure that exists. When you think about making a storage contract as an enterprise with Amazon, this is going to involve SLAs, this is going to involve lawyers, and then if that deal falls through, if Amazon chooses not to pay you, it's going to involve courts. Courts require judges, jury, policemen who can enforce it. And so all of this is sort of like extra costs that are hidden behind the infrastructure that makes centralized services possible. It's not that we trust Amazon, it's that we trust this big system that exists around Amazon, which means that if Amazon sort of falls off the path, they're gonna get hurt because this big system's gonna take care of it. And that's expensive, and that's something that it's an externality that gets overlooked. And with blockchain, we can set up these SLAs without courts and without a jury, and we can have it so that if the host falls through on their promise, the host is automatically penalized by the blockchain, and there's no lawsuit, there's no arbitration or arguing. It just either one result happens or the other result happens. And of course, this doesn't apply just to cloud storage, but many of the Bitcoin and many of the other blockchains in the space tackle this sort of externality and lessen it. Not that blockchains can replace all courts. There are reasons we need them, but perhaps we will need them less.
So we're eliminating counterparty risk, in other words.
Yeah.
Kind of, right? But so wait a minute. I mean, let's talk about storage for a second, because storage is already like mind-bogglingly cheap, right? Like, how much is it per user per terabyte on?
So Amazon will charge $20 per terabyte per month.
Okay.
If you are buying in bulk as a consumer, you can get terabytes for $20 each. So you're paying the entire cost of storage every single month when you use Amazon. And this suggests to me that there are lots of overheads associated with using Amazon that are getting shoved under the rug. And that's one of the things that Saya really helps with. On our network, it's $2 per terabyte per month. Currently, it's an open marketplace. And I think that just highlights how much more you can get away with when you've automated so much of the process.
How many terabytes is the typical user using, to give a sense of like how much of a difference that makes?
Yeah. So
for your target customer, how much data do I have to have in order to need this?
Right. So if you're the average Dropbox user, you might be 100 to 500 gigabytes.
Right.
So on Amazon, you're like $10 a month or something. If you're, say, Lockheed Martin, just to pull a name from nowhere, you may
not one of your
have
customers, in other words.
No, definitely not. You may have between thousands and millions is what I would guess Lockheed Martin has. And of course, things like YouTube, Netflix, CERN, the European Space Agency, all of this they have millions of terabytes of data. So to be able to save 90% on the storage here is a big deal for the right customer.
So we have cost efficiency that means a lot for the big customer, cost efficiency that means a lot for the very smallest customer, right? Incentives for participants, and then also a kind of like trust that comes with trustlessness.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I like to say we tie our own hands for your safety.
Good. Well, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the ICO market then, because we have an interesting mix here. Jeremy, if I'm not mistaken, Library never did an ICO, right?
That is correct. We're like the weirdest company in crypto.
You guys minted a coin. You started just giving it to people for using your network.
Yeah, I mean, do I need the mic, or is this good? Everyone hear me? So when we started Library, I came at it as starting another software startup. I had started another SaaS company before, and I said I just want to create a product and I want to start having people use it. The ICOs weren't quite as much of a fad at the time. A fad, real thing. I don't think they're a fad. We started, so that's where we are. So we said we want to make a blockchain. We want to start people using this. We really approached it in a much different way, in the sense that we didn't try to go out and shout about it at day one. We started, let's just get 20 people to use this. Let's put it out in the real world. Let's start using it, because that's my background. And I think that's the approach to creating a successful product, is you have to get it out there and you have to iterate on it as fast as possible. It's trickier in blockchain, because changing your blockchain is a lot harder than it is than changing your database and other kinds of services. But that was the approach that we took. I think it's been successful. I think it's part of why, as you've said, there are how many hundreds or thousands of blockchain companies. Most of them have nothing that you can touch. And right now you can download Library today and you can watch Hollywood films on it. And
how much is that coin that you issued worth now? What's the total market cap, quote unquote, of it?
If you count the coins that we hold, it's a market cap of around 150 million.
Bad.
Yeah.
For something you created out of thin air.
Thin air and probably like hundreds of tons of coal or whatever.
Yeah, nuclear power. Out in Europe. Yeah. So and then Joe, you guys ICO late last year, is that right? Fourth quarter?
September.
September. Yeah. Okay. So and then that was well before this started even really emerging on most people's radar, and certainly before it started really going bananas. Tell me about what your experience has been like. Being a sort of a veteran in the space, having ICO'd fairly early.
I got harassed a lot. Not literally, but getting emails from all kinds of projects, asking for legal expertise, how to set up the smart contract, because Zach, our co-founder, was one of the first guys who knows how to build pretty much anything on a decentralized blockchain. He built the first decentralized exchange called Ether Delta. Some of you guys might have heard of it. They're doing pretty good volume now. But yeah, mostly just getting a lot of emails from all kinds of founders, whether they are from existing projects that already have revenue and product, or from some projects that are just thinking about raising money through ICO and hopefully use that money to build a product for the public market. Yeah.
And then, David, you guys like did sort of like a proto ICO sometime in the dawn of time.
Yeah.
Like creatures were still struggling from the primordial.
Way back in May 2014, when I think the rank 10 coin, I think its market cap was like close to $2 million, like not quite $2 million. That's rank 10. I think that's when we did our original ICO, token sale. And the way ours is structured is a little bit different. We, as a company, we look to get revenue. Instead of basing it off of this like token that we pump and has tons of value, we take a revenue stream from the smart contracts on our network. So when two people, renter and a host, agree to store data through the Sion network, if that file contract is worth $100, we're going to take 3.9% of that. So we're going to take $3.9, and then we are going to, I guess use that for development. And what this does is it makes sure that our focus as developers is on getting the network working and on getting it usable, and like it makes sure that we don't get distracted by token price fluctuations, which may or may not be correlated to the actual success of our network. There are certainly lots of short-term things you can do to pump a token price that aren't necessarily like in the network's long-term benefit. But with our SIO fund asset, it aligns the incentives a lot better.
In a current environment with now hundreds of tokens, maybe soon to be thousands, and this kind of promise, right, that any project can raise funding in this decentralized, tokenized way. You guys, I imagine, must feel some kind of excitement about that. There's a kind of entrepreneurial spirit to it. But then at the same time, you have the conflict that David just outlined, where the up and down of your own token may actually impede its use on a network. If people are, for example, holding it because it's worth too much to spend on watching movies or storing files or playing video games or paying your bills. How do you guys think about that in terms of, the sort of excitement of the entrepreneurial promise and the wealth promise of tokenization and the sort of, reality of actually trying to run a business based on a token?
We still doing me first every time? Okay. First of all, I've got to say I got to agree with David. I think there are significant concerns about the misaligned incentives that come out of an ICO. Like, why am I supposed? If you're saying this thing is going to be incredibly valuable one day, why do you need to sell 40% of it today? Like, how much do you really need? $200 million to get to the next stage of your business, or could you prove that you can do this idea with 5 or 10 before you get some more? So I think that there are some significant concerns about that. I like that our company has tremendous incentive to make the network valuable for people, for the people who use it. I think there are concerns about the fluctuation in price. In the case of Library, you can price things in dollars or other currencies, so you don't have to be subjected to the underlying fluctuations of the currency. But I think that if you're a company that relies on these tokens, you should consider the price of your coin to be a lagging indicator and not a leading one. If you go around trying to take the short-sighted actions, like you need to ultimately create a protocol that's successful, create a system that's successful that people want to use. If you don't do that, the coins won't have value. And similarly, I would focus on looking for companies that are trying to do that. That's what you really need to fund.
And for first blood, we're going to take the very similar approach, right? We're going to price like each match or entry fee of the league in dollars and being quoted in the token price. Sorry, not token, in terms of token. Another part of the tokening of our economy is we are essentially leveraging a decentralized witness nodes that will be gamers running the software that we distribute to them, maybe in different versions. They would have a job where they fetch all kinds of game data and match data from the game API server for us and validate and publish that into the blockchain to get paid. So that's how we tie up the sort of the token utility value to the network.
think a lot of what Tango would be doing, because we haven't yet done, is mostly based on the fact that it's a credit economy, so it's about push and pull of the credit. If there's no supply of credit, that would essentially change the value of the token itself in terms of how much people are paying back on time, and a whole lot of that, almost mimicking the monetary policy of the Fed.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, every company becomes a central bank.
In a way,
in
yes.
this scenario.
It's really weird. Yeah. It's really weird. You make statements and people, you're right, it's a lot like being a central banker, it is, because people are going to read the leaves of what you said and they're going to act accordingly.
The value of the asset isn't so much appreciation or depreciation, it's inflation or deflation.
Right.
And it has some of the same dynamics,
Yeah.
right? Transaction volume is an important factor.
I think I see it as a way of do we want all the countries in the countries in the world to be democratic? Yes. Do we want all companies to be democratic? Yes. So that's the equivalent of what's happening with the token economy, if you think about it. So from autocratic, capitalistic, crony capitalistic companies, private enterprises to more public enterprises, right from the word get-go. And you set the rules and the governance and a whole lot of things just the way it happened in the 17th century here in the US.
David, any thoughts on that?
No, I think we're good.
Well, I want to leave some time for questions. I think we got about maybe 10 or 15 minutes left, so that should give plenty of time. Anybody in the audience who'd like to ask a question of the panel? Yes.
My question for David. As far as a database, so to speak, do you think, to put in context of current news and events, if Equifax had been on your platform, would you have been able to prevent what they had gone through?
It depends on what mechanism was used to compromise Equifax. So with SIA, I'll use the iCloud leaks as an example, because that's a situation where SIA really could have helped. What happened was people were storing things on Apple. Apple gets compromised. Now you have, thousands of people's photos get compromised. In SIA, everything's siloed, and so if an attacker gets in and hacks one person, they only get that one person's photos, and so to get 1,000 people at once is very difficult on a SIA network. But you still have like there are still silos that you can get inside, and so if the Equifax data was all inside of a single silo inside their company, and then the hacker figures out how to get into that one silo, then even if it's on SIA, I'm not sure we could have helped there. So I definitely think that SIA has the potential to help with these types of breaches, but I'm not certain that in Equifax's case we could have stopped that one.
Are you actually breaking up a single file into multiple pieces and storing it in different places?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's a security benefit there, right? If
Yes,
I want that
in a
file,
sense
I've got to
that-
find all the pieces and put them back.
And those pieces aren't encrypted, right? So even if you do find all the pieces, they're not going to be much use to you. But there's still a single point of failure, which is the user themselves. The user has to know where all the files are, know the decryption keys to get it. And so if the attacker can break the actual user, which is not the network's fault, then the data gets compromised. And so if the Equifax user is the one that got broken in this case, which I would guess it is, then we probably are not much better in that regard.
If you guys were doing an ICO again, what would you do differently?
I'm the least qualified to. I didn't want to get this qualified, so.
Yeah.
I need to spend some time thinking about this.
Oh, but, okay. Yeah, I don't think I can talk on this.
Wow, tough question.
I can't say. I think that most people who have been doing ICOs have been doing ICO first, regulation second, and I think that there's been a lot of misinformation flying around or not much effort to make sure that the right information is coming forward. I think it's a big frenzy, and I think that if you want to do an ICO, you should put regulation first, put rules first, make sure that you're not leading people astray. Like give people a fair chance to validate your product. And I think that we do need to see increased regulatory structure in the ICO landscape right now. I think that there's a lot of not great things happening, and I think that we can, just by being more diligent about the way we set up our ICOs, we can help that.
In addition to be careful, which I could not echo enough, I guess I would say also make sure you need this. Make sure that whatever you want to do in ICO 4 really needs to use blockchain. I think there are a lot of, on the other hand, you could say, don't worry about it, do it to raise the money because it's a good way to raise money. But I think there are a lot of ICO, well, it's a viable way to raise money. There are a lot of ICOs out there happening, and people should be skeptical as to whether or not this is actually an appropriate use case for blockchain. Should be clear, I love all these blockchain uses up here, but I think there are some others that people should be more skeptical of.
Yeah, on that point, one of our GCU companies, Adjoint, it is a blockchain-based company, but they have no need to do a token sale or anything of that sort. Right. So there are applications like that as well.
Votes is another Boston-based company that does a blockchain voting solution, but not, no coin, as far as I know. We've got time for one more here. You, sir.
Yeah, so a quick question. What would be the disadvantages from a regulatory standpoint of actually classifying your ICO token as a security? So there's a Cooley attorney here who said a Reg G, but you could also use Reg A+, Reg CF. So why not classify as a security from the get-go?
I would at least give a moral answer that I personally think people who are worth less than $1 million can still put their money into things. Like I think I've always thought that accredited investor laws were absolutely ridiculously paternalistic. The idea that
for A+ and CF.
I think that if someone we've talked about caveat emptor a couple of times on this thing. Like to me, the problem with ICOs is not the people selling them; it's the people who are investing in them. It's the people who are being foolish enough to put money into things that they don't understand. That's where the problem lies. I put the problem on that side. And so I think it's ridiculous in the first place that we say that only people that have this amount of money are smart enough to know what to do with it. I think that's absurd. And so if ICOs democratize investment, 2 thumbs up from me.
Any other thoughts on that? Regulatory coming in, why not utilize a Reg A?
Oh yeah, so I think that if you're raising money for a speculative venture, I would advocate making it a security because the truth is with these ICOs, when you're selling this token, people aren't buying the token for the utility. We saw the number of hands of people who owned versus people who used tokens, and I think that that right there, the proof is in the pudding that it is a security because you're not using it as a utility, you're using it as a speculative investment. And I think that is, worth keeping in mind.
I think that's about all we got in terms of time.